Well, Mr. Mangold, an absolute honor, sir.
Oh, pleasure to see you, Jake.
I know that because of circumstances out of your control, you shoot movies out of order. You can't always pick when you're going to shoot different things. But you have to know that the last time you call cut on Harrison Ford for an Indiana Jones movie, that there's a weight to that, a significant. So how much thought in advance do you think to what is his last shot going to be?
I wish I could tell you I orchestrated this. We had the champagne and the cake and the party ready to happen, but his last shot in the movie was coming up from underwater, gasping for air, shot in a tank. And we had all the champagne right outside the tank as soon as he climbed out. But the truth is, you never want to put a really important scene right on that last day because everyone's minds are already on, their life that happens in the next day, or the momentousness of this final moment for Indiana Jones in the picture.
I'm just picturing him soaking wet with a glass of champagne.
No,
That's an image.
We were all cheering him in a scuba outfit, dripping wet.
That's fantastic.
And he was probably thinking, I'd like to go to my goddamn trailer.
I've got to tell you, I think the reason this movie is so good is because you're clearly a fan of Indiana Jones. You're like me in that we're just a fan of these. I know you are. So I am curious, in the most fun way possible, if you could have directed any scene from the first 4 movies, just to know as a director what it would be like to be behind the camera for a particular moment. What's the moment you'd have the most fun with?
That opening sequence in Raiders, I believe that anyone, certainly any cinema lover, watching Raiders of the Lost Ark for the first time knows that movie is going to be awesome 2 minutes in. The way Steven stages that opening sequence introduces Harrison and Alfred Molina, you may not know, wonderful actor in his youth, playing his sidekick who ends up dead in another minute or so.
He had it coming.
He had it coming. But the staging, the visuals, the sense with John Williams' music and the lush undergrowth of the jungle, the sense that you're being transported into some kind of golden age film on steroids, and that was just remarkable. And I can't tell you I wish I was directing it, because that's like saying I want to write Mozart's music. I am so thrilled to be stepping in and joining. Steven has been a part of making this movie, and a partner making this movie, and an incredibly wonderful mentor and kind. And so for me, the thrill wouldn't be directing that movie. That movie is Steven's. Yeah. But it would be being there. I'd love to be there. I'd love to learn.
I love that you just said that, because I just asked Harrison about that, because I love that opening scene, and I brought up the boulder, and he said it's not the boulder that makes that scene great. It's the moment you just talked about, the reveal in the jungle that makes that, which tells you, shit,
the boulder makes it great.
The boulder's great.
The boulder's great.
Yeah.
The other thing I love in that sequence that I always think about, this is so geeky, and you're going to cut him the time for this because it's not probably of interest to his audience, but most cave scenes are really dark. They played that cave like you have all this natural light coming in. There's that thing is glowing. There's so much light in that sequence. It makes the sequence. But you have to realize that the DP and Steven had to figure out that, I think they decided that there's like this canopy of vines on top, so it's not actually a tunnel. They're in some kind of, so there's this beautiful level of illumination that keeps it, that allows that orb to be so brilliant. It's kind of amazing.
I'm geeking hard. They're giving the wrap.
Now he's back on his timer.
I'm going to squeeze in one more if you don't mind.
Sure.
I had the great pleasure of seeing the Chicago Symphony Orchestra conduct Raiders live while the movie played. It's one of the most incredible movie experiences of my life. But it's also a reminder that they don't use the Raiders March in its entirety that often. It's very infrequently used. I want to talk about working with John Williams, and how do you guys decide what's the right moment to hit that beat and finally use the Raiders March?
Well, the Raiders March is kind of a celebratory theme, so it doesn't really play more than you can have a moment where he punches a Nazi and it's bum ba dum bum, but then you kind of have to get back into the rhythm of everything. You can't go bum ba bum. So what do? You end up, John is 91 years old, and wrote 2 hours of music for this movie. 90% of it original, in the sense that it's not the indie march, it's new music. And what I think is that you plan it. I mean, it is an intimate dance, shot by shot, moment by moment, supporting the scenes and saving the celebration. What's so interesting is that the strategy that John and I came up with for the picture was that as people will talk about. The movie opens the first 25 minutes in 1944 in my best version of a kind of full-blown old-school Indiana Jones movie, with Harrison in his late 30s and Nazis, and you're in France in the final days of World War II. So that's John let the horses out of the barn for that. That is full-blown kind of golden age orchestral heroic music from beginning to end. And then we land in New York in 1969, and we find Indy in his 70s in an apartment in downtown Manhattan, and he's lost his mojo. And in a sense, what that means musically is he's also lost his theme. And we don't hear it for a while. That I told John, I almost think we should do the score to like a 70s movie for this middle section of the movie where the conspiracy is around him and he's kind of living in relative anonymity. And John was like, I can do 70s movies, because of course he was at the height of his career.
He did a few.
And so what you watch in the course of a movie from a musical perspective is Indy in full flower as a young man, the theme playing full blast, and then suddenly it vanishes, and we watch him at this kind of turning point in his life as an older man, and then as he starts to find his mojo again, we start to hear that theme again.
Oh my God, I could cry. I love that the idea of a man who lost his mojo is wearing a Cub shirt. That's as a Chicago man.
That's perfectly synonymous.
Yes, yeah. No comment. I'm a Chicago man. No comment. If you can't tell, sir, this is a huge honor for me. I flew myself out here so I could just do these. I didn't want to do it virtual. I wanted to do it in person.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Means a lot. Thank you.
It's much better to see you in person.
So much. Thank you, sir.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.